Hi everyone, it's Heidi with Downtown NorCal Live. Today I'm going to be introducing you to Igor Sariba. He is the owner of Iggy Training. Here's Igor. Everyone in Davis knows Igor, beyond. Before shelter in place, the night you were forced to close your business, you and Kelly Fuller of Spa Central spent time with me on teaching me over the phone and on computer about Zoom, and so I just wanted to thank you very much for getting me started and other businesses started on Zoom. It was very generous, but anyhow, speaking of Zoom, you've been doing Zoom workouts for all the 3 months, and as you get prepared to open tomorrow, can you talk about what it is to reopen and whether you're going to be continuing any of your work on Zoom?
Definitely. So yes, we've been doing our workouts on Zoom. They've been very successful. A lot of people have been logging in. We're doing classes, semi-private training, personal training, just making it work. We're opening back up tomorrow, but it's going to be a totally different schedule. We're modifying everything. We're following the guidelines, the protocols, and we're just going to keep the numbers really limited, but we're definitely ready with everything, and we're going to make people feel as safe as they possibly can.
But it will be different, just to clarify.
Yes, it will be very different. It will be kind of the same format as we have on Zoom, so that people don't feel like they have to come in. If they're not comfortable coming in, we're continuing our Zoom training, our online training. And for those people that do want to come in, they have that choice. But, if you're hesitant, I always suggest to people just taking your time, staying on Zoom. It'll be the same exact workout that you'll get in-house with us.
As businesses have reopened in all of the segments, they've mentioned that it is harder to reopen than to close. Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%. It's a lot harder to reopen right now, which kind of doesn't make any sense because we've been looking forward to this time, but the closer you get to the date, it just becomes more stressful. Now, like, everything has changed. The dynamic has changed. As a coach, as a trainer, you rely on that physical aspect in terms of cueing someone, if it's grabbing their arm and positioning them a certain way. You don't have the ability to do that. So now you're having to keep your distance. That's stressful. Now you have to become a sanitation expert in order to make sure that everyone's safe. That's, yes, like my facility, we've always been clean. It's always been clean. We've always sanitized everything. But now we're taking it to another level, and it adds up over time. Throughout the course of the day, it's a lot to micromanage. So it's definitely tougher. We're excited, but at the same time, we want to be cautious. We don't want to go too fast.
Yeah, you mentioned that people will come in and they'll see you for their one class, but you're going to see a lot of people all day, and so you need to be safe as well.
Yes.
So you need people to comply.
Yes, 100%. And I was telling Heidi that, yes, people are coming in, for 30 minutes or an hour, and I'm seeing numerous people throughout the day for 30 minutes and an hour, different crowds, different people. So at the same time, I have to remain safe, and I think that kind of gets lost in the shuffle of things. And while I'm micromanaging these things, I have to make sure that I'm following all the protocols, staying safe, and then, giving time between clients to re-clean everything, re-sanitize, and just kind of getting ready for the next person.
That's a lot. So you had a break-in and theft at your business while we were down. The supply chain for everyone has been difficult, especially with things like yeast and toilet paper, but exercise equipment. So how hard has it been for you to recover those losses?
So first of all, it was a very unfortunate situation given that we're already dealing with COVID. And then on top of that, people kind of following your patterns, seeing that you're unable to really go to your businesses with the shelter in place and kind of taking advantage of that situation. But with that said, for fitness equipment, everything is back ordered, so you're still waiting, for certain things, several weeks, several months even. So that's been tough on my end. Luckily for me, I have a lot of weights and things like that, so I'm able to still kind of keep it going, but I definitely had to install a security system and make sure that I was covered on that. And since I couldn't necessarily recoup everything that was taken.
Okay, so I've also asked Igor here because I wanted to talk to him about racism. In my opinion, we cannot extract what's going on with COVID from the discussion about racial inequity. And so at this point, I'm going to shift the interview a bit, and I'm going to ask Igor not to speak to me as a friend, but to directly speak to me as a white woman from a black man. So Igor is originally from the Ivory Coast. He came to the United States when he was the age of 9. I wanted to ask about your experience with racism there versus here. And you took me on an interesting path earlier where what you experienced in the Ivory Coast was more about classism, people still needing to categorize. But then when you came here, you started to see that happen by race. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. So in the Ivory Coast, my upbringing was pretty normal. Like I was telling Heidi, I didn't necessarily experience racism. It was more class. So it was the wealthier were, one level, very few middle class, and a lot of people that were poor. So that was kind of my reality. Luckily for me, I was middle class. So my life, I would say, was pretty good. Things were different. Then I moved to the United States at the age of 9, and at that point, I started kind of looking around, and I was like, hey, there's definitely a division here. There's definitely separation. People are getting classified into these little subgroups, and that I hadn't been aware of before. So adjusting to that was new for me, and it was kind of like you didn't have a choice. You had to face that it was a reality. And coming from the Ivory Coast, I didn't speak any English. French was my first language, so having to transition into learning a new language at the same time, you're having to learn all these dynamics. It was a lot. So you kind of had to decide, how you wanted to see the world, how you wanted to perceive everything, because people were quick to try to mold you, at that age. So that was very interesting. That was very challenging. But for me, at an early age, seeing that was a reality, I made the decision to nullify those things. I made a subconscious decision that I was going to learn the language. I was going to not separate and not segregate myself from any group or look at anyone a certain way. So I was lucky in that sense that at a very early age, I can see with my own eyes and make the decision for myself to kind of maneuver through the world based on what I thought was right.
So having said that, though, you talked about having been treated differently anyway because people were persistent in trying to categorize you. And one of the things we mentioned, you're a naturally gifted elite athlete. And so even coming up in youth sports, white families could pay for, sponsor teams and so forth. You didn't have that luxury. And so what was that like?
Yeah, so that was later on, I'd say, middle school, high school. I made a transition. I was learning everything at such a high rate that my family made the decision to move me to another area that was predominantly white. And for me at that point, it was just kind of like, okay, well, this reality is just different. It's not my reality, but it is the reality. So how can I, just keep going without, sort of changing? And, sports was my way of, just staying focused, not letting those external factors kind of get to me. So, but within within doing sports, it was like, it became more prevalent. It was like, hey, wait a minute, I'm being seen the certain way. I'm not getting a fair opportunity to perform like everyone else. It seemed to me like there's a lot of politics behind it. So my way of combating that was to gravitate towards individual sports, where no one could control the narrative for me. It was just, me and that assignment. It was me in that position. It was me in that result, so And that was definitely a tough moment, but you know, given that I had all these obstacles that I had to continuously battle through, you know, I just it was just another skill that I had to pick up, because otherwise it would have destroyed me. It would have just mentally just tore me down to just, you know, and you feel so lost because, you know, there's not many people that can advocate for you in that situation, you know, so you kind of feel like you're on an island. So, but at the same time, it's like, you know, that's the perception. That's what the person is wanting to happen, you know. So you find strategies and ways to kind of combat that. And for me, it was gravitating towards, you know, the individual sports, or they're not necessarily individual, but you know, you control the result. You control that assignment. You control how hard you can work, and it shows through the film, and it shows, you know, the audience can see that, you know, you're talented, you're gifted, so you should be granted this opportunity.
This next question is going to be pretty full, so I'm going to try to ask it in a couple parts. I've seen defensive white people talk about their own experiences having hardships growing up, and, you know, for example, I grew up poor, and if you work hard enough, we can all achieve the American dream. I get worried for you that with your business being one of the better known businesses, successful places people go in Davis, and well loved, that people are going to point to you and say, see, he can do it. What do you have to say to that white person who would discount other Black people's struggles who haven't been able to establish their own business?
Whew, that's an interesting question, but I can answer that. So for me personally, being a Black male, I knew that I had to build a foundation in order to even have the idea to reach this goal, which ultimately was to own your own business. So at a very early age, my freshman year in college, I always knew that I wanted to work for myself, but I knew that it wasn't a possibility right away. I had to put in the work in terms of, you know, building myself up in a community that wasn't mine at that point, you know. So sure, I you know, it took years. It took about 8 to 9 years for me to build that foundation in order for me to even have the ability to open up my own business. So to answer your question, sure, yes, I work in a place where I'm successful, thankfully, because people are continuing to support me. But at the same time, if I was a new business owner, I had no ties to the community, I'm just coming up brand new, you know, I've got all my certifications, I got my education, and I'm in a place where I'm just going to open a business, I think that I would fail within the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks top, just because people wouldn't gravitate towards that business. They would see it as a threat. They would see it as, you know, oh, here's this outsider coming in to open, you know, a facility or a business in a town when it's already a small town, and we already support, you know, the community, you know. So it's a loaded question, but at the same time, that's the reality. You kind of have to build, you know, really long. I mean, 8-9 years is a long time to know that your end goal is to open your business, but at the same time, you can't speed up that process. So, you know, and you're dedicating the majority of your life to that process, you know. So, yeah, it's almost I'd say it's impossible. I'd say it's impossible. Yes, I did it, but at the same time, I'm looking at it from a different perspective. Like, hey, if I was new into this town, into this community, and I wanted to open a business, I personally believe that it would not be successful.
So then the second part of that question is, we talked about systems, and there are systems that are available that I know of as a white woman. You, for example, we've all just gone through a period of time where people are now alert to the Small Business Administration. You can get loans and so forth. But you, talking earlier, you said you didn't rely on any systems. Why not?
Good, another good question. To be honest, there's so many obstacles that you're trying to get over on a day-to-day basis, if you become reliant on that aid, then you become complacent, and it kind of throws you off your game. And it's just, you're left waiting. You're left waiting for answers. You make phone calls. You don't get phone calls back. So the way that I deal with it is, hey, I'm going to work. First of all, I'm going to put in the work. I'm going to stay consistent with my work, and I'm always going to kind of look out for myself so that I don't have to become reliant on that system, And to be honest, that I believe that's why I've been successful, because I put myself in a position where I wasn't relying on a system, So that consistency, that mentality, although it's sad to say, I should want that system to help me out, but at the same time, I don't feel like that system is built for me. So my success comes outside of that system, and I can progress without needing the system,
You just said something very important. You don't feel as if that system was built for you. You feel outside of the system?
100%. 100%. But maybe that's not true, but I don't put myself in a position to venture that, because I'll be losing time. I have to continue to progress. I have to, at the end of the day, I have to, pay the rent. I have to continue to keep my business afloat. If I'm left waiting for a system to kick in order to help me do those things, well, now I'm putting myself in a financial position that's not ideal, So.
Yeah. On social media, one of the things that got me really thinking was a very good question. And it was a couple of weeks ago, somebody asked innocently, what are the Black-owned businesses in Davis or Yolo County that we can support? And I took a while to think about it, because I know a lot of small businesses because of downtown NorCal. You were one I thought of, but then I thought of others who've gone out of business or who moved. So what I want to know is, in the last couple of weeks, since people are thinking about supporting small businesses that are Black-owned, have you seen an increase in your business?
Good question. I have not seen an increase in my business. I have seen the articles, I have seen the posts and the mentions and getting tagged in these things, but I haven't seen any increase in business. And quite frankly, it's interesting, because if those numbers did spike up, I would question the validity of the intent behind someone contacting me wanting my services. Hey, are you just contacting me just because you want to check that, make a checklist off of your idea of what that change consists of, or you genuinely are interested in supporting my business and coming in to better yourself and better your lifestyle, So it's interesting, but the answer to the question is no. I have not seen any changes in that. It's mainly my current clients that are reaching out to me and they're saying, hey, I saw this article. I think it's really amazing, but I haven't gotten any influx of clients coming in or anything like that.
Do you think there's a place for people to make new economic decisions? As downtown NorCal, I have decided to be more conscious. I support any small, locally owned, independent business that has good quality, whatever. Is it okay to be conscious about saying, you know what, I'm going to try that business because it is owned by a Black person or managed by a Black person?
100%. I think that's where some of the change is going to occur. Having that knowledge to make the decision to support that business is very important, and it'll take that business owner a long way. They'll feel that support. I think often people are quick to shame others because of their decision to support a Black-owned business, or especially in this climate. I personally don't think that that's allowing the change to happen, right? You have to have the information in order to make the change. You have to understand what that business is going through, or what that person is going through, in order to make the change. So as long as you have that knowledge, which I'm super thankful of, I'm super thankful of, even though I don't get an influx of clients coming in, but the fact that they are aware that I am a presence in the community, to me, that's a start. That's a start to change.
You mentioned shaming, and I'm really glad you did, because I am seeing a lot of white shaming white. So in other words, because someone might be, if we're talking about a spectrum of evolution here, I might be here where another person is here on racial justice, and then someone else is way off the charts where I can't even get my head to. What would you say to whites who are shaming other whites?
First of all, I think that shaming is just the wrong thing to do, right? If you have something that you believed to be true for many, many years that was never questioned, that was never challenged, to you, you might not see anything wrong with it. So if I shame you right away, I'm not giving you the opportunity to change those things, right? So I think, my personal thought is that, give the person time to make the change, right? We want change. We have to allow people to change. Me shaming someone is not allowing them to hear what I'm saying, to get the knowledge, to process the information that I've just given them in order to make that change. So I don't agree with shaming at all. I believe there's different strategies that you can implicate in order to, help someone see that their belief or their moral value of whatever they think is wrong, or kind of open their eyes to what's happening in the world today, and then give them the space and the time to make that change. And I think that we're currently in a climate to where emotions are really high, and rightfully so. I get caught up in my own emotions. I'm angry, I'm sad, all the emotions. But at the same time, I get people that message me on a day-to-day basis asking me, questions about, hey, what more can I do? How can I change? My first response can't be to shame them. I can't, that's not promoting the change. I have to sit back and, take the message for what it is and be like, hey, I am thankful that you reached out to me. Here are my experiences. Here's what you can do. Here's what I believe that this is how you can help the situation. This is how you can help me being in the situation.
So you mentioned the people reaching out and asking you, what can we do? I'm hearing from others in the Black community, and I think everyone's very different. And so there's absolute room for that. But they're exhausted. And they're kind of like, here are some books to read, You're saying it's okay that people ask you those questions? I mean, you're a business owner. You got to do what you got to do. You got a lot more to do right now. So how exhausting is it?
It's exhausting, but for me, I learned to appreciate it because these people want to change. They want to promote the change, and they're being active, and they're starting the process to make that change. Sure, I might not respond to you for a few hours, maybe days sometimes, but eventually I'll try to get back to you and give you my opinion. I might send you some links. I might tell you to go watch this. I might tell you to reach out to someone else who is better equipped to assist you in giving you the tools necessary for you to make the specific change. But in terms of people reaching out to me, yes, sure, it's exhausting, but at the same time, I want the change. I have to do the work myself, and some of that work is at being an educator, teaching people, and talking about my experience, and for them to see, that my experiences are valid. The reason why I'm sad, this is the reason why I'm angry. For them to understand, so that they can have, it's if you know what someone is going through, you have more compassion. Your response to that, to what they're feeling, is a little stronger, because you get this visceral feeling, and you might never ever be able to experience what they felt, but you'd be able to understand, you'd be able to feel to a certain extent, even if it's just a small amount what they're feeling. So, when people contact me, that's kind of what I want to show them. That's kind of what I want to tell them, so that they don't disregard what I'm saying as just, oh, well, he's just, he's exaggerating, this incident. He's exaggerating this experience. No, I'm not exaggerating it. I'm telling you at face value what it is that I'm feeling, and at that point, now you have the knowledge, you have the information, and then you can take that knowledge and information and then further your education, and move forward with the process of making that change.
So let's talk about some of those personal experiences and your feelings around it. You're an elite athlete, as I've mentioned. You specialize in track. Running is your passion and your craft. Have you ever had a hard time running outside in Davis?
This is a sad one. Yes, I have, on numerous occasions, and I actually stopped because of how uncomfortable it made me. Early mornings is when I would have the time to run, and I'd run through certain neighborhoods, and I would feel threatened. I wouldn't feel comfortable, and I lived in those neighborhoods. I lived in that neighborhood, so it was bizarre to me, But at the same time, you take it for what it is. Unfortunately, you're like, okay, well, this is the reality. This is not free. Running outside is supposed to be a freeing experience. Well, it doesn't feel that way when you're perceiving, people's, stares and the way they look at you as threats. That's not freeing at all. So now you become super aware of your surroundings. You're like, okay, what's this person doing? Are they gonna call the police on me just because I'm running? So, for my peace of mind, I just stopped doing it, which is sad. It's a sad thing to face, but that's reality. And so I definitely experienced that.
You mentioned a time where you were sitting outside of your place of work, and it was dark at night. You were sitting in your car, I'm assuming texting or something.
Yeah.
We all do.
Yeah.
But there were two police officers who approached you.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, so that time I was sitting in my car, just finished work. I work pretty late, so usually it's late nights, and sometimes I just take a moment in my car because I feel like that's my little environment where I can just relax for a few minutes. And yeah, I had some officers pulled up behind me. They didn't know that I was in the car. In that moment, you're kind of like, all right, well, I'm just gonna stay quiet. I'm not gonna move, but at the same time, you're like, hey, I'm just on my phone. I didn't do anything wrong. So you have these, conflicted feelings in terms of like, okay, I should just be able to freely just do whatever I want in my car. But at the same time, you're aware that, there's some officers behind you, not even paying any attention to you. But just in case, you have to be really careful. So in that moment, what happened was, an officer came up to my window and asked me what I was doing, if I had any drugs. And I'm like, whoa, any drugs? First of all, I'm just sitting back in my car, just looking at my phone, and how do we just go from that to do you have any drugs? So at that point, it's a scary feeling because you don't know what to do. Hey sir, can I grab my license? He asked for my license and registration. I'm like, I've done absolutely nothing wrong, and I work right in front of where I'm sitting. But at the same time, you have to comply. And I just handed it over, and he told me that I shouldn't be there at that time. And I'm looking at him like, I'm here every single day. I work here. I don't know what else you want me to do. I've done nothing wrong. But at the same time, you're like, yes, sir. You're not. What are you gonna do? That's, all right, yes, sir. Totally understand. Thank you so much. Get you your stuff back, and all right, that's one experience right there. Move on to the next.
Have you ever been falsely accused of a crime?
Yes, I did in Texas. Yes, I got accused of rape, which, first of all, that's very serious to me, and I had no idea. I got put in handcuffs, and I had no idea what I did. I didn't know what was going on. I was just pointed out of a crowd, hey, it's him. And, you know, in the moment you kind of think it's a joke, you know, until you get the handcuffs on you, and, you know, no questions are asked or anything. I was just told to stand to the side. And then, you know, it's kind of embarrassing at the same time, because, you know, people are looking at you like, you know, what did you do? Like, when did this happen? Or, you know, what's the situation? And you're looking at them like, you know, with not necessarily fear, but you're looking at them like, you know, I don't even know this person. I didn't do any of this. You know, and you have to kind of just wait for the situation to escalate, and you don't know where it's gonna go. You know, hey, are they gonna take me off, or are they, you know, is she gonna like continue to say that I did other things? Luckily for me, in that moment, I had witnesses with me that, you know, could vouch for where I was at the time that she claimed the incident happened, and I obviously wasn't there, but I was, you know, the description was, hey, you know, it was a black male with dreads that, you know, looks muscular, and okay, so hey, he fits the description. Let's go ahead and handcuffs, you know. So it's a very scary situation, knowing that you've done absolutely nothing wrong, but yet here you are, you know, having to deal with, you know, the accusation.
Could have just been, you know, she's a white woman with curly hair and
right.
wearing a blue dress. Therefore,
Definitely.
yeah. So I wanted to close, and I don't mean close because I'm hoping you'll come back, because this is the start of a conversation.
Yes.
And I really love your business and appreciate everything you've done for my family.
Thank you.
Iggy Training's awesome, by the way, so check him out. You're an elite athlete, as I've mentioned, and a coach. And I hear a lot of people, can we just get this over with? And I get it. Like, we want to get COVID over. We want to just get through our racial conversations right now and then go back to normal. So I don't think that's possible. I think this is a long haul for both. So in all of your training and how you train others, what advice would you give from an athletic perspective that has to be applied to this human crisis?
Ooh, that's a great question. First of all, our sense of normal is now different. All right, so whatever you deem as normal is different than what it was before, and you just have to accept that. That's the reality. When an athlete gets an injury, right, you have to first let your body heal and then do the work in order to just get back to the level that you were at. And then from there, you build on that foundation to become even better than you were before. And many athletes have been able to come off of an injury better than they were prior to the injury. And that's all because they put in the work. At the end of the day, it's about staying consistent, you know, whether that's with your training or in life in general. A lot of people want to make change, but it's like, okay, is it because we're in the climate where, you know, the current change, you know, is just going to be for this moment, or is it just going to be change for the long haul? You know, if we stay consistent with that change, then yes, several years down the road, we can look back and say, hey, I made that change then, but I'm still applying those changes even now. And same thing, you know, I'll take it to coaching. It's like, hey, if a client comes in and they work out with you once, they had a great workout, and, you know, it was awesome, okay? And they just did it that one time. That's not a change. That's just, you know, fulfilling that 1 hour, you know, having a good time, getting a little sweat in, you know. But if you're able to stay consistent with your training for months, years, it becomes a lifestyle, then these are habits that stay with you, that promote a healthy lifestyle just in general, right? That's where the change happens. The change doesn't happen in, you know, that week of training 3 times, you know, or 2 weeks of just training 3 times a week or 2 times a week, whatever the number is for you, you know. But at the same time, you can't train every single day. It becomes exhausting because at a certain point you'll burn out, right? So it's like, okay, hey, how can I, you know, I'm in it for longevity, right? And the change has to be for longevity. The reason why people are upset is because it's been decades and decades and decades of the same feelings, the same changes that they're asking for, the same oppression to a certain extent, the same systematic issues, So if we are to make that change today, how can we make that change last? And that's what can be applied to from an athletic background and a coaching background. It's like, hey, I changed my form of running so that it can be better. I changed the way that I move my body so that it can change, because I can perform better, so that I can perform better, so that I'm able to perform better for longer. Life is all about adjustments, right? You have to adjust at every single stage, and I feel like the consistency, the work that you have to put in has to just be long lasting. It has to just carry through with everything that you do.
Right. I've been talking to Igor Surivich.
Got it, you got it.
I got it.
There you go.
Mostly listening to totally blindsided there. Sorry, everyone. Igor Suriba of Iggy Training in Davis. I will have you back another time. I want to check in with you about how business is going once you're up and running at whatever is going to be coming in the new weeks. I wish you well, and I thank everyone for joining us today.
All right, thank you.